Hello friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. So be sure to subscribe for more and let's get right into it. I was mistaken for a left behind sick child at the doctor's office. I'm 46, female. I have always looked young for my age, and if I am not feeling well, it seems to compound it. On Thursday, I had to see the doctors alone. So many things had me upset that day. 2 weeks prior, my meds were changed ever so slightly, and it made me so sick. Like vomiting if I ate and spending hours on the toilet kind of sick. Because of not being able to eat because of the nausea, I was so weak. I had to take a medical transport company that my insurance pays for, because I cannot medically be permitted to drive. And because of COVID, this was the first time I had to do this alone. So between being weak and sick and alone, I wasn't happy. I see a doctor in this office a few times a year. It's an organ transplant team. I checked in and was sent to the waiting room. I was there minutes before I was taken back to have my vitals done, then back to the waiting area. The waiting area is segmented. There was a woman in the waiting area I was in before. So I just sat down. I called my husband just to talk. He was outside doing yard work, so when I called, I can hear he is outside. I say, "Where are you?" He tells me. I say I feel crappy, I want to go home, stuff like that. He and I hang up. I noticed in the TV thing that was on the wall that every doctor was running on time, but mine was running late. So I'm annoyed, tired, hungry, sick, and weak. I didn't look happy at all. I noticed the older woman sitting near me start to get up and talking to passing nurses and staff. I figured she was seeing the same doctor as me and was annoyed by his lateness as I was. Soon a nurse is giving me an odd look, whispering to the woman. Then that nurse is talking to another nurse. Finally, a third nurse came over and said, "Where's your mom?" In the most sugary sweet I'm talking to a kid voice ever, but I somehow don't pick that up. I said, "Oh, who knows, probably at home." And the nurse says, "Is she coming to get you?" No, why would she? "So you're here alone?" "Yeah." "I think we need to call someone." I said, "Why?" and a nurse called my name. I said, "That's me." The nurse that was talking to me went to talk to the nurse that called my name. I hear my nurse go, "No, she's a grown woman." The nurse asking me questions before says, "How old are you?" And I say, 46. I got up and walked away with my nurse and said, "What was that about?" She said, "They thought you were an abandoned child, like 12 or 13. Then she said, 'It's stupid, just look at you.' I look at her and said, 'Thanks.' She realized what she just said and apologized. I laughed. I guess the lady in my waiting area thought I was calling my mom to pick me up, and after 2 hours and she never showed up that there was a problem. Am I the a-hole, refusing to check ring footage for my neighbor's car getting scratched? I live in a nice neighborhood. The driveway has room for 2 cars. It's reserved for my dad and his girlfriend. I park on the curb in front of our house that fits 2 cars comfortably. My neighbor constantly has guests over, and the guests constantly park on that curb in front of our house, which wouldn't be an issue if they parked properly. But they don't. They never do. They park directly in the middle of the curb, leaving no room for other cars. And I work a closing shift as well, so I've been forced to find parking in the next street or park, and walk back home in the cold rainy nights lugging 10 to 20 pounds worth of items. My dad has talked to them several times, telling their guests to leave room for other cars to park as well. But they don't care. The same thing just happens the next day. My neighbor got a new truck and someone dinged it. He came over today to ask if we can check our ring footage to see if it caught anything on camera. Only I was home, but I just said no and shut the door on him. He never had any neighborly courtesy over me having to walk the next street over from a park to get home at like 12 a.m. in the heavy rain, so I did not care if his car got a scratch. My dad saw the ring camera and asked me what happened. I explained to him and he told me I shouldn't do that because it made us look bad. But we did check the footage and our cameras never caught anything anyways, so it isn't our issue. I think it was kind of deserved and I would be tempted to respond the same way too, especially because your camera didn't actually catch anything. So it's not like you're actually withholding evidence from him. You're just making him think you are for the hell of it. This comment here says, "Not the a-hole, but you did miss an opportunity. You could have said, 'Oh, you're here to request something. I see. I've been there myself. It's nice when neighbors help each other out, am I right? Well, no problem, I'll check the footage for you. But give me a week. I've been busy at work and I'm really tired because when I get home, I often have to park several blocks away because people park in front of my house and don't leave enough room for a second car. There's plenty of room for 2 cars, but some people just don't care to think of others. So come back in a week, and if I'm able to park in front of my house, I should be able to find the time to check the footage. See you in 7 days. Goodbye. And that probably would have been ideal because OP could have tried solving their own problem at the same time, but instead probably just made things worse. But you don't always think of these things in the moment. And I have a feeling that commenter might not have come up with that on the spot either if they were in OP's shoes. It's easy to think of exactly what you would say and do when you're just sitting there carefully writing out a comment, but in the moment, it's usually a different story. Sir, this spot is for emergency vehicles only. So in my first year of working security, I was at a shopping center, Reed Mall for my non-Australian brethren, for a well-known chain/company. So it's around 10 p.m. and most of the shopping center is locked up, apart from a few late-night stores, cinemas and major stores, Kmart, etc., which are only accessible from select entrances. We get a call for a person requiring medical assistance at Kmart and proceed there. After performing the required first aid and calling an ambulance, I'm put on ambulance detail, which is waiting in the designated parking bay for them to arrive and escort them in. I'm standing out there waiting and diverting people from parking there as it's close to the ATMs, and everybody is moving with minimal fuss. Until the one shows up. You know the one. Rules don't apply to them because reasons. I say, "Sorry sir, I'm going to have to ask you to move. We're waiting on an ambulance to arrive for someone inside." "I'll only be 5 minutes, I'm just going to the ATM." "I'm sorry sir, but you need to move. All you have to do is back up 10 meters and you're in the non-emergency spot." He gets out of his car and starts walking to the ATM. "Yeah, well, I'm just going to the ATM, so it's all good." I just sigh and step aside, as I can see the flashing blue and reds in the background and know what's going to happen. "Fine, whatever, sir. Don't say I didn't warn you." Ambulance comes around the corner and I wave to them so they know I'm there. They see the car parked in the emergency bay and pull in behind so it's forming a T. The driver's side of the ambulance is about an inch from the back of the guy's vehicle, so there's nowhere for him to go. By this time, the guy is trying to rush through his transaction and comes barging up to the ambulance. "Hey, can you move? You're blocking me in," he said. "Sorry sir, there's an emergency and we're in a hurry." Proceeds to start getting his kit from the ambulance. "I'm in a hurry, I need you to move," said the guy. And I say, "Sir, you were told before that an ambulance was coming and you refused to move." The guy is now angry and says, "F off you wannabe cop, you didn't say to me." And back to the ambulance, he says, "Are you going to move your ambulance or not?" And the ambulance worker looks at the guy and calmly says, "Not." He collects his last bag and begins to head inside with myself and the other paramedic. By this time, the guy is livid. He's cussing and cursing while heading back to his car. I go inside with the paramedics, bag and stretcher/trolley, and direct them to the person inside before heading back outside to make sure that the guy doesn't do something completely stupid. At this point, I find him trying to Austin Powers his way out of the parking spot. Sorry, should have mentioned that the front of the car was parked up against a 3-foot wall, and having no luck at all. I'm watching him from a distance when the paramedics come out with the patient on the trolley and proceed to load them into the back of the ambulance. The guy says, "Finally, now you can move and I can get out of here." Unfortunately for the guy and unbeknownst to me, while they were inside, one of them had called the police and informed them what was going on. The police hadn't arrived yet, but they had been told they were 5 minutes out. So once they've loaded up the patient, they begin doing some more checks, making sure the patient is comfortable, none of the electrodes for the machinery has come off, etc., etc. While this is happening, the guy is getting angrier and angrier, and I am waiting for him to snap and do something stupid. When, lo and behold, 2 police cars come screaming into view and pull in nearby. 4 officers get out and come over to us, and the paramedic just points to the guy and says, "That's him," before going back to his work. The police officer says, "You," points at the guy. "Here, now," points to his own feet. The guy slowly walks over, head lowered. "Yes, officer?" "First, why are you parked in an emergency bay? And secondly, why are you yelling at the paramedics whose spot you are parked in?" "I didn't know it was an emergency-only spot. I was just going to the ATM." I got angry when they blocked me in because I have somewhere important to be. The officer looks from the guy to me. Is this true? No, sir, I told him twice what the bay was for and that the ambulance was expected. He just didn't care. The guy, loudly and in anger, trying to sell his own version, says, "That's a load of shit. You didn't say anything, you just stood over there." Waves to a spot nearby, and only came over when you saw the ambulance coming while I was at the ATM. The officer looks from the guy to me to the guy and back to me and sighs. "So who am I going to believe?" he said. At this point, I am in a bit of a pickle as I have no proof of what I said, or at least I didn't know that I had any, until a voice pipes up from some random person who had been there the entire time. The random person says, "Actually, officer, the guard did tell the guy to move, twice. I've been here the entire time as I'm waiting for a jump start, so I know for a fact that it happened." The guy looks angrily to the random citizen who had just destroyed his story. "Nobody f***ing asked you. Mind your own goddamn business." A nice big grin comes over the cop's face, and he looks the guy squarely in the eye. "Get in your car now. I'll deal with you in a minute." The guy heads back to his car, hops inside, and slams the door shut. The police talk with the paramedics, patient, and me for a little bit, while the paramedics are doing the last of their checks, before stating they are good to go. As one of the paramedics gets into the driver's seat, one of the police officers gets in his car and goes to pull up behind the ambulance. The guy has seen the ambulance getting ready to leave, so he starts his car as well. As the ambulance pulls away, the guy's jaw hits the floor when it is replaced by a police car. At this point, it's now just the guy getting reamed by the cop for everything that he's done. I'm just taking notes for the report that I have to write up. The guy gets a few tickets for his trouble and is let go. It really takes a special kind of person to be told that you're in the way of an ambulance during an emergency, and to actually respond with, "Don't worry, man, I'll only be 5 minutes. The dying person can wait." Anyway, guys, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more Reddit shenanigans. So have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.